The following podcast episode contains content warnings for addiction, drug use, and occult themes. Please listen responsibly.
Hello, welcome to Tablet, a micro RPG podcast. My name is Tim, and I'm one of the hosts and the editor of this production. Tablet is an excuse to get my friends Max, Matt, and Manny to play micro RPGs with me. We are all interested in game design as well as actual play, so each game will get a review at the end. Stick around to hear our opinions, as well as if we would put this game back on the shelf, or if we would table it and play it again later. This is our 12th episode.
Yeah.
We're going to be playing Séance by Elijah Mills, which you can get on itch.io. I'm going to pass this over to Manny so they can explain the game.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Manny. I use they, them pronouns, and we're going to be playing this fun little game. How should I start? Just by reading the rules, talking?
I would...
Or reading the little...
Do you want to read the blurb at the top?
Yeah, okay.
I feel that's cool.
All right, yeah. So, this is the blurb that starts off this game. It says, Welcome, mediums, to our séance. This evening we will use our innate connection to the realm of spirits to channel the one that haunts these halls. We shall learn the message which it wishes to impart to the land of the living. We shall attempt to piece together its ghastly tale so that it may find peace. Prepare yourselves in mind, body, and most importantly, spirit. Let us now begin.
Okay, I gotta take a quick pause.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Very spooky.
So we are all playing mediums in this game. This is set in the 19th century. Yes. Takes place in the mid-1800s. We are mediums, and before us we have two cards. One has our character name and description, as well as what are called channeling points. Should we introduce characters first?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
I think we should. No, especially because this is a GM-less game. I think introductions are in order, and I vote you go first, Manny.
Okay, so before you sits an old woman with iron gray hair and a corset and a shawl around her, a giant bustle behind her, a long cigarette in one hand, and tiny little pince-nez glasses. She sits at a table in front of a crystal ball and she says, Welcome, my children. My name is Isadora Layton. I will be your guide this evening into the world of spirits.
Quick question. Is she the professor's grandma?
What professor?
You've never played Professor Layton?
No.
Aww.
I'm sorry. So that is my character, Isadora Layton.
Excellent. Hi, I'm going to be playing...
Introduce yourself.
Oh, hi, I'm Tim. Y'all know me. Y'all heard of me. He, him pronouns, please. I'm going to be playing Gary Goudini. He also uses he, him pronouns. He has a pencil mustache, slicked back black hair, and the kind of glasses that wrap all the way around the back of your ears, and they're also very round.
Nice.
And he's wearing a very done up tuxedo that looks like he wears it every day. It's like a really worn down tuxedo. And he, of course, sits down at the table with a preposterously deep bow to Mrs. Layton. Or is it Miss Layton?
It is Mrs. My most recent late husband has passed.
I am so sorry to hear that, Miss Layton. Mrs. Layton. He bends way down at the waist, moves his chair, sits down, and then in three carefully, perfectly adjusted, scoots towards the table.
Nice.
Alrighty. I'm Matt. I'm going to be playing Sir Jeremy Thurston. Both the character and myself have he, him pronouns. But Sir Jeremy, as he walks up to the table, first thing to notice, he's got a mostly receded hairline, and what looks with thinning blonde hair in the back. He's wearing a stained waistcoat with and he's got a bit of a pot belly. But he just kind of wanders up to the table, gives a quick bow, almost just a nod, pulls out the chair with a flourish and just kind of sets himself down, and that's when he reaches in and pulls out the flask. And you see the little dribbles come out the corner of his mouth, and you know where the stains come from.
Amazing.
Gross. Well, the last person to arrive. My name is Max. My pronouns are they, them, and I will be playing the tiny Miss Melinda Patience Cartwright, who is naturally an 11-year-old girl. She enters the scene wearing a long white dress, meticulously white, almost as if chosen specifically for this look and appearance and this event. She has blonde hair, which she wears in 2 long braids that fall down beside her face and down her front. And she drops a nice curtsy to all of you adults, and then sits very prim and proper on the very tippy edge of her seat.
Does she have a stuffed animal with her?
She does not. She left it in the carriage, of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
All right. So how this game is played, each of our mediums have 10 channeling points. They will use those channeling points to channel the spirit that we are attempting to contact here tonight. Once a medium begins channeling the spirit, we will set a 5-minute timer. And they will embody the spirit. They will speak as the spirit. They will establish things about the spirit that we're contacting. In that 5 minutes, the other mediums have the opportunity to interact with the spirit, to find out things ask any questions, find out information from said spirit. It is the point of each of our mediums. We all have a secret word, a message on one of our cards. As we are channeling the spirit, we are attempting to get the other mediums to guess that word. We are not able to say that message aloud, write it down, or spell it out, or otherwise give it away in any way. Instead, we're supposed to provide hints and clues, and if another medium guesses our message, we immediately reveal that. The game is over when all 4 of our messages are revealed, or if any medium runs out of channeling points before their message is revealed. And that's basically it. Once all the messages are revealed, we will release the spirit and discuss among ourselves as mediums the spirit's story based off of the messages we were given. So, with that said, does anyone have any questions?
I've only got one question.
Yes.
Which player had the most recently experienced... I butchered it. It's the who goes first mechanic.
It says the player who most recently experienced something unexplainable begins channeling the spirit.
That's definitely not me. I've never seen a ghost. I had some spooky moments, but I know what happened.
I had a squirrel eat through my air conditioning unit. Weird, but not necessarily unexplained.
Explainable.
I think you explained that very clearly. Are we all too scientific?
I'm not typically a very woo-woo person, but I have had experiences that are currently as yet unexplainable, but not for many years.
I wouldn't say I'm a very woo-woo person either. I like the phrasing on that. But there's been several experiences I've had that if they have an explanation, I never cared to find it. Probably the most recent for me was a very gigantic spider just showed up in my car.
Ooh.
There was never any webs. There was never anything prior to let me know that it was making its home and living there. There was nothing going on. I didn't take my car anywhere beyond work in my apartment. And it showed up one day, and I saw the webs it had, and it was gigantic. And the next day, it was gone, as were the webs.
All right. I think that sounds like
I
you,
think that sounds most recent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You saw a spider. Congrats. You get to go first.
So what happens is Mrs. Layton draws the big velvet drapes in her parlor, and she walks over and lights a single candle in the middle of a circular table and puts a stick of incense into the candle to light it and sets it on the incense burner. She takes a giant peacock feathered fan from her handbag and fans the smoke into the room as a gong sounds somewhere in the darkened parlor. And she... Everyone hold hands, my dears. We all hold hands, and she says, "We come here tonight to speak, to breach the veil between this world and the next. Is anyone here who would speak to us?"
I would speak.
The floor is yours. What would you have us say here, spirit?
I would ask why you woke me up. It was a good nap I was having.
Oh, spirit, I'm afraid that was not a nap you're having. You are, in fact, deceased. Could you tell me your name?
My name is Timothy.
Excellent. Handsome name, I must say. Okay, Timothy. Gary Gordini pushes his glasses up his nose pointlessly. They're already as high up as they'll go, and says, where are you from, spirit?
I'm from here in Boston, just like the rest of you.
Boston, you say?
Yes, I can't give the accent correctly because I'm being played by a Midwesterner, but
Yes, we all have our crosses to bear, Timothy. Tell me, Timothy, do you have any siblings?
I had 3. I had 2 younger sisters and 1 older, and the oldest one was moved out west after she got married. I don't know what happened to my younger 2 sisters.
How old were you, Timothy, when you passed into the realm of the dead?
I was a full-grown man. I was 19.
Oh, no.
And how did you die, spirit?
I don't rightly know. I was walking through town, hoping to send a message to my sister, and I don't know that I ever got there.
Ah, I see.
Timothy, was it a crowded day? Were there many people around?
I think it was. Yeah, it was kind of crowded. Yeah, folks were real excited about something. I don't remember what. I was going the same way though.
Perchance, was it some sort of fire?
No?
Timothy, tell me, how do you feel about tea?
I know they threw it in the harbor almost 100 years ago.
Yes.
No, the count's wrong. About 60 years ago. There we go.
I see.
Timothy, was this a time of the Earth where cars existed? No cars. Okay.
We're going to have to look up some historical facts. We're gonna have to,
I don't know when cars were invented.
Excuse me, Ghost. When were cars invented?
What's a car?
It's like 1850s, I think.
Okay,
Model
I don't
T
know.
era,
So
I
they're
think. I don't.
fairly
No.
modern, I think.
Okay, but no cars.
Fuck.
I think that's it.
Yeah,
We're waiting for the timer to end.
we have 30 seconds left. Anything you wish to say, Ghost?
I mean, have you heard anything about my sister Betsy?
Was Betsy the older or one of the younger sisters?
Betsy was my older sister. She was the one who took care of us after our mom passed. I miss her something fierce.
I see.
I think we're losing Timothy.
Oh, no.
Well, that was an experience.
Well, welcome back, Thorsten.
Okay, for the listeners, we're putting a big old pause on this because we got to brush up on Wikipedia real fast.
We'll be right back.
Oh, I'm not looking up shit.
Oh, no.
Yeah, anything. This is better if we don't know
Yeah, I think so.
fundamental details.
Okay, in that case, I gotta cut a quick pause. Something about a cow?
Yeah, what's this thing about a cow?
Yeah, the fire in Boston.
Was it Chicago?
It's Chicago.
was the big one.
Yeah,
Someone said Chicago earlier. I swear to God.
No, that's because we were talking last night about Monster Hunter and we were fighting the Chicago Magala.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we're cutting all this part though, right?
Are we?
Yeah. Cal kicked over a lantern and started the Chicago fire.
Allegedly.
Allegedly,
Okay.
yeah.
So who would like to go next?
Madam Layton, or Mrs. Layton, shudders as the spirit jumps from Jeremy Thorsten's body into hers, and she goes, "Ah." All right, so Betsy, you all heard of her?
Timothy's British now.
I think we have heard a little bit about Betsy, your sister.
Point of clarification. This is always the same ghost, right? There's just
Yeah.
one
Same
ghost.
ghost,
Okay.
yeah.
Correct.
Yes, she. I forgot what my word was. Right. He says, right, have you been able to contact her? I haven't seen her over here.
I don't believe that we've had contact with Betsy. Does she write letters? Does she call? How did you contact her before?
Well, she left. She took up with the doctor and moved out west.
What was the doctor's name?
The doctor's name, it was Dr. McGillicuddy, I believe.
The root beer manufacturer.
I suppose so. He said he was a doctor peddling vials and tinctures to help with the consumption.
Well, that makes a bit more sense then, Timothy, about why she would have gone with him if that's how your mother passed.
Mum passed, and then Betsy, she began to get sick too, and took up with this Dr. McGillicuddy. I was always a bit scared of him, quite honestly. I didn't trust the bloke.
As a question for you, good Timothy, did he describe himself as a doctor or a surgeon?
He said he was a doctor, but I never saw no papers or nothing.
These tinctures you described, were they perchance made of oils most often?
I believe some of them were. They were oils and alcohol. Betsy, she developed quite the cough, you see, is what took out her mum, and we worried for her, and then she went to see him and then became obsessed with him and couldn't quite shake the medication he gave her. So he proposed to her and she married him out of some sort of obligation. It was my theory. I don't think she loved him more than she loved the bottle, if you catch my drift.
What a snake.
That's what we called him. We called him the slippery snake, me and Matilda.
A snake oil salesman, one might say.
Bessie didn't like it when we talked like that. She called him her bitters, is what she said. She says, I need my bitters for my cough.
I'm drawing a blank. I'm actually running through drink recipes in my head right now, trying to figure out the word associations.
Why was it so important that you reach out to Betsy that particular day? What were you trying to say?
Would there have been some sort of kerfuffle in town? Some of the good doctor's clients had gone missing, you see, and we was worried about Betsy, we was. And so we went to the house to see where she was gone, and they had both all of the things were gone. It looked like someone had left in a hurry. She left her mother's silver hairpin, which is a thing I don't think she would have done by herself. And I was worried about her. She wasn't in a good way, what with the sickness, and then with her reliance on these bitters, she called them.
5 seconds.
Would you say he was an old-fashioned kind of man?
I seemed like it. Wore very old threadbare clothes.
I'm automatically seeing how this game gets real interesting real fast, because the story I was trying to tell just took a wild left turn.
Just you wait until...
I know.
Yeah.
It's hard, too, because I feel like we're all chasing different possibilities of what the word could be.
Uh-huh.
Well, we all chased the same phrase down, and considering there wasn't a massive reaction, I don't think we got it. Damn it!
This is much trickier than I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah,
This is really hard.
it's fun.
I can see why you have 10 channeling points instead of like
I
3.
see now. Yeah, like we were talking about that a little bit earlier.
All right. Who wants to go next? Is it me or is it you? Or do we want to bounce back between?
We can bounce around as much as we want.
If I was just thinking as like a meta game sort of thing, if we have one person do it over and over, they get to narrate the story more, but we also might suss theirs out more easily without complications in the way.
Yeah,
But at the same time,
I think it's more fun to have
it might
bounce.
make it a bit more difficult.
yeah. Or like if someone says something, like if, for example, if like Max starts channeling the spirit and says something in their story, I might jump back in because it will connect back to mine, or I think I could connect it.
Yeah, this is like 5D chess of a game.
It's
Let's get back into it.
Okay.
yeah.
I will jump in if neither of you has a thing.
I mean, I'd be happy to, but I know that I'm going to derail some shit.
Yeah, I need in order to get my bit, like like you said, the sussing theirs out more clearly and being able to take control of the story. Like yours getting derailed would be fantastic, but at the same time, I really feel the need to clarify.
You think you
some
could bring
points.
this home if you win again?
Yeah, do it.
Yeah,
I
go.
think I could get it a hell of a lot closer.
All right.
Do it. Yeah, your turn again.
But yeah, they'd found our mother's silver hairpin in the bedroom when they searched his house out in Kansas.
The hairpin for her hat.
No, for her hair.
Okay. Several hairpins are used to hold hats in place. This is not a hat pin.
It's not a hat pin.
It's a hairpin.
You're saying that the hairpin was found in his house in Kansas.
Yeah, that's where they'd moved to from Boston. I'd finally had a way to get in contact, or weren't the ponies.
Oh, I see.
Wait, they're communicating from Boston to Kansas
Yeah,
with the telegraph?
yeah, that's exactly it.
Yay!
All right,
The word was
the word is telegraph.
Telegram
Damn.
specifically.
Oh, telegram. Okay, all right.
I think that's close
Oh,
enough.
I think that counts.
Yeah, because telegraph is the
The thing that it sends a telegram.
It's
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
infrastructure, right?
telegraph is more of like the concept of putting it out there.
Yeah,
Whereas telegram is the message itself.
Yeah, a piece of paper with a note written on it is a telegram. The way that you got that piece of paper was through the telegraph.
Yes.
Got it. Awesome.
So then you're just done?
So I no longer have to channel.
Okay.
Now you just get to ask questions every time.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we can stop your timer
Mm-hmm.
and start a new one.
Okay.
Okay, so that's 1 of 4.
Good
Yeah.
work.
That
Okay.
quick.
I think Gary Goudini is starting to shake and shimmer a little bit. The table rattles as suddenly cotton like mists come out of his mouth. Oh.
Does it smell like Fruit Loops?
Cotton. No. Hello, everyone. It's good to see you all again. I had a strange moment where I thought I was in Kansas.
You're not in Kansas anymore, Timothy.
Motherfucker.
I suppose y'all have some questions for me.
Well, yes, you were. We'd been asking you questions before about your brother-in-law. And the instances surrounding him and your sister.
Yeah, my father was none too keen about that. He did not like him one bit.
So your mother died, but your father was still around.
Yes. He wasn't around very often, though. He spent much of his time overseas.
Was your father a naval officer?
No, I've lost my English accent. I see.
It's okay, Timothy.
By governor, I do believe mine father was.
Everything is more fluid in the spirit realm.
It seems so. It is. Cheerio. My father, he was an archaeologist. Is what he was. Studying all sorts of sandstone and the like.
Out in the Egypt areas.
Yeah. In Egypt, that's what he was studying. Digging in the tombs.
Was your father perchance from Indiana to begin with?
No, somewhere around Jonestown, I believe.
And your father, did he make any discoveries in Egypt?
Oh, yeah, he did find a really big one.
Was your father the one that discovered the Tomb of Tutankhamun?
Yeah. Yeah, that old fella.
So your father was exploring the pyramids then?
Yeah. Exploring the pyramids and Tutankhamun
and the Sphinx, and the pharaohs of Egypt.
Why, yes, the pharaohs of Egypt. My word was pharaoh. That was. Was that just easy, or was I?
No, I think it was good.
It was good, yeah.
You led us pretty perfectly to it. This is. I'm afraid to get excited about the fact that this might be a fast game.
We'll see. We've got some words yet.
Yeah.
Well,
I've used one tick. Are you next?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Miss Melinda looks from person to person, eyes wide, paying close attention to everything going on, when suddenly an unseen wind from an unknown source lifts her braids up from her shoulders, and she sits up straighter and almost seems to appear much taller for a moment. But she slumps back down, and in a voice quite unlike her tiny little girl voice, she says, oh goodness, I'm back.
Welcome back, Timothy.
This is such a journey. Things are so fluid in the spirit realm, including accents.
So long as you remember that you're from Boston, my boy, everything will be good.
Cheers.
But no, you just finished telling us about the fact your father was discovering historical records of the pharaohs of Egypt.
Indeed. And I remember being so happy that he wasn't here when all of this was going on. He loved Betsy so much, and to have her get swept up in this scam with this foul man, would have broken his heart.
Would you say Betsy was your father's favorite?
He tried not to say anything, but I think so. I think so.
What was Betsy? involved with anything before the scam man, the snake oil salesman?
Do you know, she always seemed to have a connection with nature. Even when I was a child, I remember her going out of an evening when she was supposed to be doing her chores and sweeping the floor, and I would find her out in the woods sometimes behind our house, because Boston was, of course, much less urban in those days. When she would be making, she used to call them potions out of sticks and twigs and things. And later, when the weather was strange and the wind was high, sometimes we would find her up on the roof looking off into the sky. She was always a strange person, and I think that's partly why we all liked her so much.
Did she ever perchance express interest in visiting Salem?
No, although we did have a great-grandmother who was from that area.
Was she part of the witch trials, as it were?
I don't think so, or if she was a very good storyteller.
Storyteller, you say? Did your sister, Betsy, was she able to use her natural gifts with nature to help people? Did she pursue it as a career?
I can see where you're imagining this, but no, I don't think so. I don't think so. She had a particular affinity for storms, but never made healing practices or oils or spells of her own.
No.
Something of a lightning child, as it were.
Indeed. My word was lightning.
Nice. I was literally going to ask a question about lightning. You beat me to it. Nice work. All right, we have one more word to guess. All right.
But all that changed one day.
The accent's back.
On the dark and stormy night.
On the dark and stormy night when Mum died. I believe that's what she did, where she tried to heal Mum and Mum's cough. But there's only so much you can do against the consumption with herbs and sticks. And so she became obsessed with finding other remedies, and I think that's what led her to this doctor. And what she sampled a lot of his wares. She did, and from most of it, it seems like she said most of it was rubbish, cod liver oils and tinctures of piss and vinegar, but there was one that she took quite an affinity to. She said it helped her sleep and did some relieve the pain that she did, because what with her tending Mom, she eventually did catch the consumption.
Perchance,
she said it helped.
Perchance was there poppy in this mix? Some of the opium?
Not sure. Seems likely. She was not a very learned girl. None of us could read per se, but it did smell like poppies. It did. And when A got run out of town, we were the ones that were monitoring her, and it got to where we had to hide them bitters because she was taking them round the clock and walking out in the middle of town and nothing but her skivvies and riding horses all up and down the streets, shouting about the British coming and hallucinating. Said she saw Mum walking up and down on the balconies at night, and so we had to hide the bitters and we had to give them to her only when they needed. But then that's why I was wondering, you see, if you've heard from her.
We have not heard from Betsy, and I'm very sorry about that. Your mother's addiction sounds absolutely dreadful. Do you think you I ran out of steam on that head of thought there. I feel like we almost have it. We almost know what's happening with this here ghost, but I don't quite have a grasp on. Something about Paul Revere and
well,
lanterns and addiction and...
It seems that she, if you all ain't heard of her, then it seems like maybe she's still in your world, and what we feared, and she hadn't taken too much of them bitters and crossed over, as it were.
So you're worried that your sister has died?
I was.
Or are you worried that she hasn't died?
I mean, it's not so much that she hasn't died as how she would have died, you know. If she is dead, I hope she's out of pain. If she's still living, I hope she got away from it.
A true question for you, young Timothy.
This is so confusing.
About the doctor that your sister ran off with.
Right.
Other people he'd treated had gone missing?
Some of them did, yeah. Some of them went mad with these tinctures. Some of them, just never got better. It was a bit of a mixed bag, it was. There was one gentleman who went stark raving mad and, ran out into the Boston Harbor, he did, high as a kite, on these tinctures, and that's when they did find poppies in his blood.
That's the 5-minute timer.
So you have to take off another one.
Keep going.
Yeah, I'm really struggling with this one.
I feel like the scene from Ted where it's Mark Wahlberg, just like, it's a white trash name. Okay, I'm just going to rapid fire him. You got to tell me if I'm getting close. And he just goes name after name after name after name. Gets all the way through, runs completely out of breath after naming off like 50 some odd names. None of those. Was it any of those with a Lynn after it? Yes. Oh, you mother. Okay, let's try it again. I feel like that's the point we're at. Like, we're right there.
All right, you want to go back into it then?
Yeah.
All right.
Betsy was always in pain and kept taking more and more of them bitters to quell that pain. And
painkillers?
It was painkillers. That's what they told us it was. But she got obsessed with it, and she started taking more and more. And by the time she wasn't my sister anymore, and that's why I was worried, you see. And that's when he took her off to Kansas.
So first he got her addicted and then took her off.
That's what we saw.
Did you ever take any of these bitters yourself? Did you ever try them or know what they tasted like?
I did once, you see. I had a bit of a cough, you see, and she gave me some, and it did it right up. It took care of that cough. But then when I went out, I actually went to the house in Kansas, you see, to check up on Betsy, and he said that she wasn't feeling good, so she was laying down, and invited me to have a drink, and the whiskey he gave me, it tasted very bitter, and that's the last thing I remember.
Do you think you were poisoned?
It seems so. If that's the last thing I remember, and then you're calling me forth in a séance, seems like a pretty short distance to jump, eh?
Oh, okay. So Dr. McGillicuddy poisoned you with whiskey.
Oh, something in the whiskey, I think.
Did he drug the whiskey?
That's what I'm probably saying. Yeah, I think there was some sort of drug in the whiskey that, in high amounts, maybe killed me.
Like an overdose?
Yeah, like an overdose.
God damn it!
Popular drugs of the period.
poppers.
Oh. I may have gotten too specific with this word.
Well, you don't drug whiskey with hashish. That would overdosing on that would be easy. It'd be easier to kill someone by just smacking them in the head with a brick of it.
Yeah.
We tried that a couple times too.
The hashish brick.
The hashish brick, yeah. Dad brought them over from overseas.
Of course.
Was it laudanum?
It was laudanum.
Oh my god. I would have never guessed that.
I really thought
Very
you guys
Tombstone
had
of us.
it. I
Oh my God.
really thought you had it when you started asking about poppies.
Yeah.
My goodness.
I had no idea. Like, I didn't think about laudanum and going from there. And like, that was good. That was
That was a good pick. That was appropriately specific and timely.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
and also it was. I'm just gonna. It was a good pick and really good call on the word because Tim and I were going to completely drop blanks on that.
Yeah. I was never going to grab laudanum out of the air.
I was like, how can I, like, I actually did a bunch of research on laudanum last night. So, like, that's why when you brought up poppies, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
We're there. No.
Yeah. And it's like...
I thought about the movie Tombstone because the story was revolving around, like, this guy having taken this, like, young woman from back east, out
here's
west,
the real question.
addicted to the substance. And that's the plot point in the movie Tombstone.
What was the message that that young Timothy was trying to send us?
Yeah, so I can tell you what it was from my point of view is that what I was trying to get out was that his sister had become addicted to laudanum and been abducted or taken by this man, and he didn't know if she was living or dead.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was like comforted that you all hadn't heard from her.
Heard from her, yeah.
But like sad because that means she's still like suffering from addiction in this potentially like manipulative relationship is what I was kind of going from there. From my, I don't know, but like with all these others.
But yeah, I think with Timothy's father being wealthy enough, she could afford as much laudanum as she wanted.
Exactly, yeah.
Having found Tutankhamun, that's not remotely historically accurate. But
No,
it's
not
really
at
funny.
all.
Considering the story was set between 1835 and 1845 as telegraphs were coming up, and Tutankhamun was discovered in 1922.
Oh, yeah.
We're
Don't
playing
worry about
fast
it.
and loose here.
Don't worry about it.
Everything is more fluid in the spirit world.
I was certain there was another Egyptian burial ground found, but when you said Tutankhamun, I was just like, yes, that one.
Of course, it has to be that one.
Right.
This kind of goes into something that we can talk about in the review, but mine I don't think had much of a meaningful connection
Well, that's just the
to
thing.
the others. I kind of made up this thing about Betsy having had this affinity with nature, but that's the extent of that connection, I think.
That's just the thing. The way it's written right now, we've already won.
Yeah.
Now we just kind of decide, like, I think Manny's got it right. Like, this is why he was trying to contact us. He was trying to check on his sister, who was addicted to laudanum.
Yep.
Like, he'd been there in person. He'd tried by telegram. Like, going off his... I'm willing to bet they used up the last of their dad's Egypt money.
Probably.
On trying to get the electric into the building.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's...
He'd have mentioned lightning as well as a topic to, like, key. If she had passed, it would have been something she'd have brought up
Yeah.
and shared.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, this is neat.
So yeah, I think we've won the game. Do we
sure.
want to take a break and come back and do a review?
Hi, we're going to record. Man, I don't want. We're going to review this game, Séance by Elijah Mills. The first thing we always ask is, what are the likes and dislikes? Tim, do you want to start us off with your likes and
Sure.
dislikes?
I'm gonna say that the thing that I like the most about this game is I like all the instructions on setting mood and the overall this game does a pretty good job of telling you should set the mood, and I love a game with a lot of mood, and this game is filled with that kind of flavor. That's my big like. Is it just like the intro, the like how to play get started is like, listen, you should have candles, the room should be dark, you're playing a seance game. It tells you to do the right things, and I dig that. My dislike that I would say is I would say my biggest dislike is just like I'm struggling with how to say this exactly, but like the game itself was not exactly my favorite kind of game. I feel I'm a role player, and I didn't feel like, and it tells you to make a character. I didn't get to spend any time at all in the head of Gary Godini. I was purely thinking about Timothy the Ghost, which to be fair, handsome name, great fella, but I was kind of struggling with trying to, because you're playing two characters simultaneously, and one of them you're not writing. So I think that's my biggest complaint is it kind of says it's a bit of a role-playing game, and it kind of isn't.
That's true.
I will actually hop right in because that is actually my like.
Yeah.
Building your character was entirely to set the mood, and then it's cooperative role-playing. We were tossing it around the ball. We were all building the ghost character, and that I think is my biggest like of this game. It's the cooperative storytelling mechanic that's just it hits really well for me in particular. I'm going to echo the mood bits. That was a lot of fun. Dislikes, it's the right kind of game for like a party game. It's a little too intellectual for most of my friends. So all the instances where I'd be saying like, hey, I'd bring this out, I would honestly go back to something like Dr. Magnet Hands instead.
Yep.
Like if you're going to play a party game, you'd pick something lighter and less serious and more funny.
Yep. That's literally my only dislike, is it's a little too intellectual for the kind of table it's written for. I don't think that's coherent enough, but that's the best I got.
I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
I'm picking it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I feel mixed about this one. There's a lot to like. Like Tim mentioned, I love the mood. I love the aesthetic. 1900s, 1800s, 1900s, early spiritualism and seances it's so rich aesthetically. And I think that could be really fun. So I liked that. I liked the collaborative storytelling dimension once I grokked that that's what it was. But at the same time, that's also what I didn't like. It reminds me the most of a old school forum game where it's like, let's all tell a story on the forum together.
Yeah.
And like if any of you guys were ever part of like SA or something in the old days, it was like those big storytelling threads.
Like the Sundered Lands.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it was like sometimes that would dial in and you'd have this really rich, collaborative, incredible storytelling game, maybe with somebody that you didn't even know, bouncing back and forth and connecting and building this character or this scene together. But when it went bad, if some people did it as a goof or thought it was a bit, or the bits went different directions, or somebody had to shoehorn in their thing instead of this other thing, it would really fall apart. And that's, I think, what I felt with this. I think with the right collaborative storytelling people and having, if by some magic you all landed on similar words or themes of words, I think you could wind up in a really rich storytelling place. In practice, though, I found it to actually be pretty disconnected and disjointed.
I think pulling, I'll come back to this later, but
yeah. So echo all the mood setting stuff. Love that. We actually dimmed the lights in here, which was fun. You guys can't tell that because this is in fact an audio medium. I liked how like rules light it was, and I liked how it was just a very different game from us, because like there's no dice, there's no actual like mechanics of the game other than the channeling points, and for me I liked that, and how kind of freeing it was. And I think it was it's an interesting game to play if you're looking at like what what TTRPG is and can be.
Yeah.
And I liked that. Some of my dislikes are, I agree with you, Tim, about like it talks about like creating a character as your medium, but you don't really spend any time as your medium. And so I didn't super like that. It was almost like give your medium a name and introduce yourself, like, is all you really need. I don't think you really need to build a full character, and we all did, and then ended up not needing them. So I guess that's probably my dislike of it, is like, you don't really need to build a medium character. Do we want to transition into what this game was trying to do and what would you change? Because I have thoughts about that.
I don't know what I would... well, I feel like what this game is trying to do is pretty obvious, like it says on the tin. You're playing a seance, and you're doing... I don't know if y'all are familiar with cold reading, where it's sort of a magic trick where you can kind of like, you're thinking of someone in this room has an ancestor with a name that starts with an M. Like, I do, and like, yes, can you tell me about this? And then you can kind of like, you've got a scar on your knee, and then everyone's got a scar on their knee. Of course they got a scar on their knee, but with that, because everyone's got a scar on their knee, yes, you fell down and you got that scar, and yes, of course. And then you can get people to answer more and more questions for you. They tell you their life story. You act like you're telling them their life story. This game is kind of, if you're good at cold reading, this game's easy. This is a very much a cold reading game. So like, in a way, making people cold read each other as a seance game,
that's like spot on. That's what it is.
Yeah. What I would change, though, I do have a thought on that too. I hope you guys don't mind me jumping.
That's what we do.
Is the one thing I would change is I would give the players a pool of words.
I have a similar thought about that,
because I mean, mine was Pharaoh. I feel was very out of the way for a lot of y'all's words, and laudanum was not a word that I know. And I think lightning telegram very much in the theme, and I think we could have, they're all technically in theme, but like with a big, incredibly dense, like the sheet I have here, which is the printout of Séance that we got from Itch, there is I would say maybe like 6 inches of empty space. You could fill that like 100% with like so many words that were in theme that players would be able to pull from, so that people wouldn't end up with a word that felt too out of theme, which would help keep the ghost in a place that would feel more aesthetic, more relevant. That's what I would change. I would add more words.
I agree with you. The game does exactly what it sets out to do. It's like you're playing a seance. Like, nailed it exactly. I also think that that's one of its strengths. It like really harkens back to that, like you said, Max, early spiritualism, like sideshow carnival, like Depression era things, and like that theme is like there, and I think thematically it just like hits the nail on the head where that's concerned. I will say that, and this might be a house rules thing, which I think would be an easy thing to implement if you played this again. I almost wonder if it would work better if, much like the board game Mysterium, if you had one player playing the ghost and collecting everyone's words and trying to get them to guess. So kind of mixing a little bit with like Dr. Magnet Hands, and then they have this pool of words. Maybe everyone gives the ghost 2 words and they choose which one, or something like that.
And you're not allowed to guess your own word.
Yeah. So maybe something like that would be a little bit more interesting. The other thing, the caveat with this game that I will say is, we've talked a little bit about how it's like not as traditional TTRPG. And it is very much, it's almost more like an improv game or a storytelling game, which is very different. If like you have people sitting down at a table to play a tabletop game, maybe don't bring this one out. But if you have people who are more about collaborative storytelling, I think this is a good icebreaker game for a lot of people to play. If like, like you're meeting a new group for the first time and kind of like figuring out how to play games with each other, I think this would be a good one. But extremely my jam because I love the storytelling aspect of it, but I do understand why it's not for everyone. So I think that this game was trying to be a seance and trying to be less of a game and more of an experience. And on those two fronts, I thought it was really good. And then my suggestion of like what I would change is I would maybe have one person play the ghost, and have like pools from the characters.
Yeah.
Or from the other players.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what's been said. I don't know. Okay, so what I was trying to do, okay, you're trying to play a seance, sure. One thing I will add is, I guess we could have a conversation about this, but historical seances often included a degree of fraud. There's a component of that I think would be interesting. Like, what would it look like if one person was running the seance and there was like maybe like a hidden mechanic or something else that was happening kind of behind the scenes? That was interesting. But as far as what it's trying to do, I actually don't think it nails it completely. In How to Play, it describes itself as a cooperative role-playing game. It is cooperative. I don't know how much it's a role-playing game. I don't. You know, I mean, it's a collaborative, cooperative storytelling thing, I guess. But the role-playing, at least to me, the role-playing felt more based on whoever happened to go first created the character, and that's what you're all role-playing to maybe middling success, depending on that character or what your word is. You know, for example, I found, again, just speaking for me, the word that I picked had pretty much nothing to do with the story that was evolving. So rather than really engaging the role-playing experience of the medium I made, or even the ghost, instead, at least for me, I found up feeling a lot more pressure to try to shoehorn in a story component that would engage my word.
Yeah. Same.
So as far as things I would change, I actually totally agree with the suggestions both of you made. I think having a pool of similar words that you could pick from would be really cool. Having only one person play the ghost, where that person role plays that character and everyone else role plays their own medium, I think could make this role playing component stronger. Agreed. I think either of those would be really cool interventions.
I think if you just change it from being a cooperative role-playing game to being a cooperative improv game,
for sure,
and all of a sudden
that makes it land a little bit better.
Yeah.
Something else I was thinking of listening to you talk, Max, I'm wondering if like not trying to get the other mediums to guess your own word would help with that. Like if we made the words and then passed it to the right. So Max, you were trying to get people to guess laudanum, and I was trying to get people to guess pharaoh.
That would have gone very differently if you'd passed it to the left.
Yeah, for sure.
That goes back to Tim's thing of like having a set pool of words that all kind of connect to.
And
I would honestly just drop a suggested list for new players.
For sure.
Yeah. For this table, we're all this is our jam. We are all storytellers.
Right.
So honestly, to me, the win condition felt too easy.
Yes.
But that's literally because of this table.
Yeah.
That was the only thing I would think about changing. And as I was thinking about it and letting you guys go, it's like, no, I wouldn't change the win condition. That is right. Giving somebody 50 minutes while trying to work as part of this story that you've all been building as a table to guess a particular word.
Yeah.
Yes, that's going to be necessary for a lot of people. But we know each other. We bounce things off each other. This is not our first cooperative storytelling game.
Yeah.
I just had a thought. Two things that I think would make this game significantly more successful and kind of hit on some of the things that you, Tim, and Max had issues with is, first of all, I think, and again, this might be a house rule thing, but I think before playing this game, it would be very helpful to kind of decide some things of like, and they can just be very broad strokes of like, the ghost we're contacting is like, was a circus performer in the Depression.
Sure.
And then that gives you kind of a thing to stay on theme, but still is like wide open. Like what kind of performance. Were they the mentalist? Were they the bearded lady? Were they?
Yeah.
So you pick a bit of story for the ghost before you write your words down.
Yeah,
That
and
would
then
be
that
cool.
can kind
I
of
like
channel
that.
it
I like
in.
that a lot.
Another thing that I think would kind of help with both the role-playing aspect and the sort of collaboration would be if there was like an interruption mechanic where like if Matt was going down this course and said something that like I could use to get my word in, I could interrupt Matt and like spin my channeling port to start channeling the ghost. And then if I said something that like spurred Tim on, he could interrupt instead of trying to fill out the full 5 minutes, because I think that was a little cumbersome, because even the other people were like, what other questions do we ask the ghost?
Yeah, I was struggling right
That
now.
would have to be a like dig into it with Elijah, right?
Yeah,
That would be a thing we'd have to sit down with Elijah and talk it out, because that's
for sure.
a
honestly-
very different game.
That is a
very,
very
very
different
different game. But I know that
But
there's a card game called Fairy Tale or something like that, where it's or Storyteller, something like that, where you have...
I've got it on the shelf. I don't remember what it's called.
Here's the deal. I know exactly which game you're talking about, where you're using the cards and you're telling the story, and you get down a couple of cards, and then someone else picks up and keeps the story going.
Yeah, like if someone says something that like you have in your hand, you can play it and take control of the story.
On the other hand, though, my mother took that game, and over the course of 2 sentences went bam, 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 bam. There's all my cards. I'm done. And
To be fair, she was quite drunk.
to be fair, that's my mother.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's as soon as you start like any kind of cooperative storytelling game has to be the right kind of people at the table.
Yeah, for
that's it's been my shtick for a lot of our reviews that like depending on who's at the table, you're going to aim for a different kind of game, a different set of themes, a different set of win and loss conditions.
For sure.
One of the cool things that we get to do here is we get to explore all of those as a group of people that we all trust.
Yeah.
So honestly, I think this was a really good game to play, and I feel like I'm going to be the most optimistic one at the table, which never happens here.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Having listened to all of this and hearing this discussion and conversation, it feels, at least to me, like a really rich aesthetic, really cool background, really cool basic setup. But I feel like even in a micro setting like this, and although normally I favor rules-like games, I'm craving just that little bit more meat on the bone to like lift it up. And that could be as simple as suggested words rather than letting people pick, or the idea you said of let's establish a setting or a character very lightly at the start, or even letting the role-playing get deeper by having only one person play the ghost and other people role-playing their mediums a little bit more. Like even just 1 or 2 little small additions to give it just that little more meat on the bone is I think what I'm looking for to like make it not a party game. Because if it is just a party game, like an icebreaker game, then I would pick something else.
That's fair.
You know what I
think that's very
mean?
Fair. Yeah.
That's where I am.
I know exactly what you mean. My fireback is this is a game for a very specific kind of party.
Correct.
We have had trucker parties. We have had we've had a horse race. We had a derby party. I work at the Renaissance Festival. That's its own set of themes. Like there's, if you want to do a spooky seance themed night where there's horror movies going on over there, and we have the candles and the crystals, and everyone's coming up and they're dressed already in character.
Yeah.
Then they don't even need to write down their description. They're just, I get to be myself in this particular scenario.
That would be way better.
Well, and that was the thing that I was going to say is like I think that like as is the game would really work as a performance. Like if it was like some sort of performance
I would
piece.
watch this played. Absolutely.
And like Matt and I were talking about this a little bit because like you could have other people play this game that like maybe weren't comfortable being the ghost, but could be like people watching the seance who get to talk to the ghost, or you could just have people just watching this game. And I think that this game has a lot of entertainment value for people who are not playing it. Whereas like some other games, like I don't necessarily know how fun it would be to watch, say, Honey Heist or Big Gay Orcs if you're not playing it. But like I think if you're having like a fancy Halloween party, and like there's like a performance art aspect of it, this game is like would be really good for like a murder mystery night or like a Halloween party or something that like that. And I think it would work really well as a performance piece.
I agree with that totally. Yeah, I'm thinking about events that I've been to where it's been like tarot readers in one corner and then like a art piece going on over here and then
for sure
like a play going on that evening or something like really fun.
This is a bit more of an ethical seance. You're not convincing the audience that you're raising their dead aunt or whatever. You're instead
but you can also like incorporate that into the performance and like maybe you pick someone out of the audience and like they're a plant but like oh, you like do the thing where it's like, oh, you have a family member whose name starts with M. Or
like,
they don't even have to be a plant. Maybe
I
that's
just
leaning
realized
into the
that
improv.
all three of us have M names.
Yeah, I know.
Dang it.
See, I'm cold reading. I'm very good at it.
Right? But like, I mean, maybe that's
cool.
part of like the because when you go to an improv show, they're like, we need a suggestion from the audience. Like you could like full on like maybe that would be more fun to like get the role play aspect of it is like you come out as the mentalist character and you're like someone in here has a great Aunt Sue and then like you use that to base this ghost on, but you still all the mediums have these secret words they're trying to shoehorn into it. And I think that could work really well.
That's interesting. I agree with that.
So
final question, table it or shelve it? Tim?
Well, I'm gonna go first. Okay, we've sort of done this kind of thing before, where like we've enjoyed the game, we've talked about the game. I think I'm gonna shelve this one. I would play Séance 2 though. I would come back to this again, but as is, I don't think I'm gonna play it again. I had a good time, but yeah, shelve it for me.
I'm like I said, this is weird. I'm the optimistic one. I would table this game. This is entering my string of games that I'm willing to bring out in front of a group. Specifically, it is game number 3 on that list. The first game was Dr. Matt Hans. Second one was the lighter version of Baron Munchausen, My Uncle the Baron.
It's very good.
And this one would be the most in-depth of the storytelling ones, but I would bring this to most tables as like a, hey, let's sit down and do this.
Seance with on Halloween with costumes, crystal balls, spooky music, maybe throw in the odd house rule. I'd table it. As is, nah, I'd shelve it. It's a shelve it for me.
Okay.
It's a total table it for me. I would play it anytime, but also, to be clear, this is extremely my shit. So it would be hard for me. I also have a theater background, so now I'm also thinking it's like, I said it as a joke about doing this as a performance piece, but now
I great idea.
I have some ideas, and I'm like, so it's a table it for me, all the way around.
Excellent.
Yeah, now that you mention it as a performance piece, I think that's such a cool idea. I keep coming back to that. Like, you could have it be like a real table, you know, people all around in costumes. The audience could be like silent onlookers. Maybe they can like yell out suggestions, but like the mediums can't listen, you know? It's cool stuff.
Or maybe they like yell out the suggestions and that's the medium's word. And like you don't know what the improv suggestion is until it's said on stage. I don't know. I think it should be fun.
Ideas.
And like depending on how far you want to go with it, you could like really go ham and like set it up to like the table shakes and like there's steam. And
all you got to do is have one person on either end of the table. You put rulers in your sleeves,
Mm-hmm.
and then you carefully slide them out, slip them onto the table. Everyone gets their hands on it, and then whoa,
Yeah.
I was a magician kid, so
Yeah.
You still are a magician.
I think you still are.
Yeah, that's great. Like that's
Love
amazing.
that.
Yeah, and
Love
I think it could be so cool. I want to make an entire play out of TTRPGs like this, where like this is scene 1 of the play, and then we play another game as scene 2, and it's the same characters. I don't know. That's not what this podcast is about. It's also Fringe right now, and I saw a really good Fringe show last night, and it was the first Fringe show in a long time that made me miss doing theater. So now I'm like, oh, I have so many ideas.
All right, should we wrap it up then?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's put a
I
little
do have
bow on
one
it.
plug.
You have a
though.
plug.
Yes.
All right, let's hear that plug.
We have a Discord.
That's true. We
Yeah.
We have a Discord. This is the first place I'm actually planning to be active on things. It is one of 3 Discords I do not have muted.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, come join us on our Discord. You can. We've got it linked on our website and such. So
Great. Yeah, and we can put the invite link in the show notes.
yeah. Well, thank you for listening to Table It. You can find us at micro_RPGs on Twitter or email us at microrpgs@gmail.com. Please submit games you would like to hear us play with the subject line "New Game." Our theme this episode is "Chill Vibra Jazz" theme by Danny Dory. And have a good one, y'all.